Hello, my name is Etriel, and in this video, I will be showing you, well, more like giving you my current list for my new grade 3 card, new boss. It's the new grade 3, Magoroku Fugen, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'm not gonna explain, like, I'm just gonna go right into the list. So basically, I run a playset of this. Of the new boss card, it's it's good. I run 3 Mizukase and I run 1 Fusen Kongo. I'm not gonna explain what Mizukase does. It's just everyone knows what Mizukase does. If you don't know what Mizukase does, um, it's your homework to know what this thing does. I'm not gonna explain what this thing does, but this thing does. English is hard. I'm gonna explain these two cards. Mizukase at 3, by the way. I'm gonna explain the grade 3 boss first. It has 3 skills. Yes, 3 skills. Basically, ball of text. Okay, the first skill is continuous on Vanguard circle. During your turn, for each evil decoy token on your field, front row gains 5k. Just a flat 5k. This snowballs quickly because front row getting 5k is plus 15 total. If you have 3 units and you have you have 3 tokens on the back row, most likely. That's 15k to the front row, so that's basically Morfessa but without a crit. And you have 4, that's a plus 20 to the front row, which is slightly more than Morfessa. The second skill is auto on Vanguard circle. If your opponent's Vanguard is crit or greater, and if you have 3 or more evil decoy tokens, your front row gains a crit. Basically a Morfessa, in my opinion, because you most likely have 3 tokens on the back row just doing nothing. Maybe boosting because of the new grade 2, but I'll go into that later. But mostly doing nothing. But that's good because your front row gains a passive 15k a crit. That's basically Morfessa for you. So yeah. And the third skill, it's auto on Vanguard circle. When your rear guard is put into your hand from rear circle, no, when your rear guard is put into your hand, you call an evil decoy token to an open rear guard circle. It needs to be open, and you call up to 1. There's no cost for the call, it's just a free 5k shield on the board. Now, that's a synergy because from the first 2 skills, you know that you want as many tokens as possible, but that's not all. Then you can cost counterblast 1, and then you gain an imaginary gift protect, and then you put it on the circle that you put the token on. This is a bit hard to explain. There's 3 scenarios that is weird. So let's say I choose protect 1. You might be wondering why would you choose protect 1. Well, it's because this. If you choose protect 1 and you call a token because of his own skill, not other skill, his own skill. If you counterblast 1, you don't get this. It just basically vanishes. But if you don't call anything because of his skill and you counterblast 1, you get the protect marker and you put it into your hand because you don't technically need to put it on the rear guard circle that token has because you didn't call any tokens for the Vanguard skill. So that's basically screams when when you bounce something from when you bounce the Rega circle, counterblast 1, you call nothing and you gain a protect out of nowhere. This snowballs quickly because the amount of protect that you have in hand is a lot. Sometimes rivaling, in my opinion, Oracle Think Tank amount of protect markers. That sounds stupid, I know, but just sometimes does that out of nowhere. Um, so you have like multiple protects in hand, and yeah. So basically, if you choose protect one, you're declaring, I want nothing on the board. You can't call to get another protect if you counterblast one. It would be a waste. If you call something, you don't counterblast. But this is also one of those who, like, it gives you less power, but it gives you way more, well, way more survivability because you're getting a prone life. And this works a lot of the time because if you call something, you don't need the counterblast. No, if you call something, you don't need the counterblast, and with this deck, you definitely want the counterblast for some things. But it's a protect one, and this deck can run both protect one and protect two. In my opinion, you go to protect way more unless your opponent can mass retire, like Kagero, like sometimes Luar, like more or less Narukami, but they're not really a problem. You can bash them pretty quick. You're still gonna die no matter what because the clan is way too slow. This clan against that clan, but yeah, you can go to protect one if you really need to, but the juicy stuff comes from protect two. So with protect two, you have 5k more power in your guard circles, and it when it attacks, it gains 10k shield. So basically, you put it, you call Vanguard, choose protect two, you use Vanguard skill, call something. You need to call a token on the open trigger circle, counter plus one, and get a imaginary gift protect on that circle. So this one is the complete opposite of protect one. If you want to have another, if you want to gain a protect, you need to call it on the specific circle that you want, and it needs to be open because you need to, because for the token call, you need to call it on the open trigger circle. But this snowballs, in my opinion, this snowballs slightly less because you need to conserve counterblast slightly with this deck. But it comes to point where you have three protects on both sides, and you usually put it on the front row because it gains the most power and the most shield and basically the most value, the most bashing of the deck. Basically can get crazy power if you put protect 2 on the front row. If you want to go to the safe route, you put it on the back row, but in my opinion that's wasting power. But that's more like also make the intercepts more balanced since your protect is spread out. But most likely you're gonna put the protect on the front row, have like one intercept that has 35k shields, and your opponent basically needs to attack that thing because that thing is practically a shutting down one of the attacks. So you attack that thing, it has 15k power at least since it's a token. You see, if it's grade 2, it's 24. Is it worth it or is it just attacking the Vanguard? I don't know. If you attack the Vanguard, you need to stay aware for the 35k shield intercept or 25 or 15 or some many protects plus the shield intercept. But yeah, um, it's a really nice thing that this deck goes well with Protect 2 because a lot of decks doesn't go well with Protect 2. I know Hanzo is good with Protect 2, like decent, but in my opinion, if you're pushing it, you go Protect 2. If you are insane, like not really insane, but you just want to have fun, go with Protect 2 with Hanzo. Like, go ahead. Like, I know Malko's forced to run Protect 2. I know the new Grade 3 for Angel Feather is forced to run Protect 2. I know some decks likes Protect 2 slightly more than Protect 1, especially this deck. But yeah. Uh, You can go both ways with this deck. You're not forced to any protects types, but yeah. And I'm running one Fugen. It has only one skill. When it attacks, if you have 5 damage, exactly 5 damage, no more, no less, you Soul Blast 1 grade 3, and you bind any amount of cards in your drop, and this unit gains 5k power for each card bound this way. Until the end of battle, I mean. So if you bind 10 plus 50, if you bind 20 plus 100, and your opponent cannot call sentinels for this unit's attack. Um, this is good because plus one crit from the grade 3 boss with Magoroku Fugen, and yeah, this is 130k plus easily. I'm not joking. Because your drop is gonna be big when you're going into this guy. If you know something if you know that you're going into this guy, you dump every single card in your hand, all this thing, attack, bind everything in drop. You most likely have like 20 cards, sometimes 30. That's over 100k power usually. Yeah, it's a finisher basically. I'm running one because you technically don't go into this guy a lot. And it takes a grade 3 in soul, and you have Mizukaze, so you need to pick your poison. If you have 2 grade 3s in soul, congratulations, you just combine these two, and then your opponent is fucked. And not in the easy way fucked, like the literal fucked way, because they need to dump everything in hand, so multiple grades. Mizukaze goes even harder with combination of Fugen if you can pull it off miraculously, and it becomes a shit fest. And since this is V premium, you don't have G-Guard that can retire. Like the closest thing is some of the when put on Guardian Circle, you like do some shenanigans to your opponent's board. But with Mizukaze, they gotta be careful because they might regret that later. And you have a certain grade 1 later that I will explain. So yeah, that's the grade 3. I'm only running 8 because I'm not running Jamyocongo. I'm just trying to stay away from Jamyocongo for a bit. I like the card. I just don't like I just don't like using it in this deck because it's slightly unstable. I want this deck to be a lot stable. That's why I built this deck specifically without Jamyocongo in mind, because with Jamyocongo you need Unan at 4, you need Jamyocongo at 3 or 4, so that's already 7 cards and you need to get out. And you most likely can't run the Great One, so that would be way harder, and you definitely don't go Fugen. So yeah, so that's maybe basically 5 plus you're already running a lot of Great Ones in this deck. I just don't like it. You can, but you just don't like it. Like you don't like maybe you don't run the grade 3 searcher. Just run Unan as your grade 3 searchers. But that's kind of it. The Jamio Congo. It's yeah, you need to basically build Magoroku with Jamio Congo Fugen Jamio Congo, but with Fugen. That's basically if you want to play Jamio Congo with this deck. So your Jamio Congo is your first priority. So yeah, that's why I'm not running Jamyocongo. I know the cut is busted as hell, but I'm not gonna say anything anymore. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue with the grade twos I have. Four of the I'm not gonna butcher this name unless I read it. So Kageugachi, yes, Kageugachi. For Kageugachi, for Magatsu Gale, and three, not four but three Yamishibuki. I'll explain this later. I'm gonna explain the new grade 2 first because this card is cracked in this deck. It's not cracked. It's not literal cracked, but it's good. It's like It has only two skills. The first skill is the one that I'm really surprised that all of decks have. Like all of Nubatama cards have. The generate token generators. It's just when placed, call on evil decoy tokens. Like I know evil decoy tokens like aren't as useful as plant tokens, but it's also at the same time you actually have a harder time getting evil decoy tokens than getting plant tokens, and I can say that from experience. I'm not a Nuba player. Like I'm not like just a Nuba player. I'm also a Neon Nectar player. But it's weird. It's way weird. I know that the token generators is only introduced in Hanzo, but it's weird that it took them this late, like to have a free token generator. Like what the fuck? Maybe Magoroku Fugen, but still, you need to do something to it. You need to bound something. This one, you just call and you get a token. It's just Sylvia, but it's slightly better than Sylvia because it has a second skill. It's also slightly worse than Sylvia because it's 9k and tokens can't attack. Yeah, evil decoy tokens can attack. Wow, that's the first skill. The second skill is Act on Vanguard Auriga Servo. It's a once per turn. You soul blast one. All of your evil decoy tokens gains 5k and gains a boost. So this is basically the grade 2. I forgot the grade two's name. It's Z. It's the start with the Z. I forgot. So yeah. On this and with that card it's counter blast one. This one is a soul blast one. Sometimes you do run into a soul problem. A lot of the time you don't if you use this skill sparingly. Plus you have a smart like Magatsu Gale play or something. If you conserve your Magatsu Gale, you have enough soul. If you ride, you have enough soul. If you use a certain great one that I'm gonna show you later, you get soul, but it's an unreliable soul. But yeah, I'm running this at 4 because it's a free token, and yeah, it's just a free token. I'm running this at 4 because it has no cost tied to it. And with this deck, the more token you have, the better the deck gets. And I'm running 3 Magatsugi, no 4 Magatsugils and 3 Yamishibukis. Let me explain. The reason why I'm not running 3 Magatsugils or 4 Yamishibuki or hell even both at 4 is because one, the grade 1 slot is full. 2, this eats a counterblast and you want as much counterblast as possible with this deck. I'm not even joking. Magatsugil's counterblast is option for the bounce at least. It's not. It's like don't the bounce doesn't need counterblast. You just put this card into soul. Is why you run this as 4. Meanwhile, Yamishibuki, you need a counterblast to bounce something. Yes, you get 3 tokens with the Vanguard, but a lot of the times doesn't it doesn't help. With Magatsu Gale, it draws you cards. It's way more versatile than Yamishibuki. With this deck, Yamishibuki is a beat stick more than a versatile card. You want Magatsu Gale, mainly in my opinion. It's not as big as Yamishibuki, I know. Yamishibuki is 39k 2 crits base if you have 3 tokens. Now you're wondering, why is it not 24 and 2 crits? Yamishibuki gains 5k for each grade 0 on the board, and tokens are grade 0s usually. This thing basically gets double power. So this card snowballs fast. Meanwhile, Magatsu Gale is way more, like, I mean, way more stable. It draws you cards. Sometimes the draw is even game changing. I once draw like into a Fugen. I have two Counterblast. I have two Jagunrou. I'm gonna explain later. I have one Great Green Soul. That's why I literally dump everything, even my Mizukaze. Even though I like Mizukaze, even though in that probably in that game Mizukaze would be a better play. When I saw Mizukaze drew Fugen, like Fusen Kongo, I want to play Fusen Kongo because it was not a tournament match, just a casual match. But Fusen Kongo, at that specific game, I've bought like 27, like almost 30. Basically, it's over 160. Basically, and you have Counterblast to talk to Jagunrous, you basically have 5 attacks on the board. Yes, Counterblast 2 and give 5 attacks on the board. What a really good deck. But you basically have Morfessa. So yeah, this is why I'm running 3 Yamishibuki and 4 Magatsugeo. Because it's way more stable, way more consistent. And it's way less stressful. You don't need to you don't really have you don't have as much problem as running 4-4 or 3-4. If you're running 4-3, well, Magasugil and Yamashikugi respectively, um, you're gonna have a better time. You're going to have way relaxed. Like if you made a mistake with Yamishibuki, that's one counterblast gone. And with this deck, every single counterblast counts. I know that I'm with this deck, like this specific deck, you run a lot of counter charges, but you gotta take into account this is Vanguard and you're playing Nubatama. You're not gonna draw a lot, especially in V. Especially with this deck. This deck doesn't draw a lot of cards. Surprisingly. The doesn't have any skill that draws except for the counter charger itself and Magatsugyo. So yeah, now for the great ones, I run 3 Jagunrou. I have 3 Magami, 4 Sakura Fubuki, 4 Katarigitsune. Katarigitsune I'm not gonna explain. Sakura Fubuki at 4. I'm not gonna explain the skill, but I'm gonna explain why I run 4. Counterblast. You just need a lot of counterblast with this deck, that's all. I'm not gonna explain it anymore. Just, it's understandable. When you play the deck, you're gonna feel how much counterblast you eat. Surprising amount, actually. If you have a lot of face ups, you have a lot of face ups. You're gonna abuse the fact that you can get a lot of protectives. You pray to God that Sakura Fubuki goes into your hand early enough. And you basically try to exploit your opponent as much as possible. Yeah, and this is the 2 cards, like the ones, like this one is new, this one is a common. I'm gonna explain the new one first. It has 2 skills. The first one is act on Riga Circle. By the way, these 2 great ones does not have any Vanguard Circle abilities. Only Katarigitsune has Vanguard abilities, so watch out. You can lose a lot of pieces. That is useless on the Vanguard Circle, especially the great ones. So yeah, act on Riga Circle once per turn. You retire a grade 0 and you soul charge 1. It's an unreliable way of soul charging. That's all I can explain. Maybe if you have access grade zeros, which you, why would you? You soul charge 1. If you call a grade 0 like a trigger and you need to soul, maybe you would do that, but I don't know why would you purposely do them. It's sometimes a waste. Like it's sometimes a waste of perfectly good grade zeros that you could use somewhere else, especially the tokens, because you need it on the back row, unless you can have a way to call it back immediately, of course, because it's an act. And the second skill is auto. At the end battle that this unit boosted the regard, skill +1, and then you basically bounce the column, but you bounce the rear guard, but you bounce your own rear guards on the same column as this unit. You choose two of the rear guards, and then you bounce it. So basically, it's a really strong card. It bounces 2 for 1 soul, and it's Magoroku, it's 2 tokens on the board. Nice. The problem with this card, no Vanguard abilities. That's all. That's why I'm running 3. I'm not gonna explain anything anymore. It just doesn't have any Vanguard abilities. And we have the grade 1. The common grade 1. I was surprised that Bushiroad actually made this card, because I don't expect them to do it. Like, not this way. But when I saw this card, I remember a certain common. I remember a certain common and a certain rare. I remember this card, and I remember a certain grade 2. I'm not gonna explain the grade 2. The grade 2 eats 2 counterblast. Way too much counterblast. Practically. On paper, you could do it. It's devastating. In practice, it's near impossible to pull it out without having some consequences. This grade 1 is way better. It has 2 skills. The first skill is auto. When this unit is retired during your opponent's turn, you search your deck for the same card and put it into your hand. Like, I mean same card, I mean this card. So basically, your opponent is this card is a protection. If your opponent decides to kill a rearguard, and you can choose, this is a free card that you can put into your hand. If your opponent can only choose normal units and you only have this thing on the board, which happens a lot more times than people think, this draws you a card. In my opinion, with this deck, you need it because of the second ability, which is a really nice ability. Yeah, the first skill is just nice to have with this specific deck. The second skill is auto on hand. Yes, it's a hand skill. When a rearguard is called by a card ability, you counter +1 and you call this to Riga Circle. Not open Riga Circle, you just call this to a Riga Circle. This changes a lot of things. Magoroku Fugen's third skill of calling something, of calling a token, counts to this grade 1. And you can use it during the battle phase. You can multi-attack with this deck. And that's nice. That's it. This is the whole grade 1 thing. This is the reason why you run this grade 1. It gives you access to multi-attack, which is nice to have. It's price, especially with Protect 2, and you usually go to Protect 2 with this deck. And we are going to the grade 0's trigger lineup. So, 4 draw pages, 4 heal guardians, the grade 3 ones, 4 draws like normal, 4 crit starter, the not gonna explain, heal guardian, The not gonna explain. Drop PGs. The I'm not gonna explain. This deck needs the drop PGs. Since you're going to protect too most of the time, so you need the PG. 4 crit and 4 protect. Because there's no front in this deck. They just it. In my opinion, if you have front, 2 crits, 2 fronts. No, yeah. Um, 2 crits, 2 fronts, 4 draws, or 2 crits, 3 fronts, 3 draws. But you don't have fronts in Nubatama. Not yet. No, they're not gonna do that in V. um, so yeah, 4 crits, 4 draws. Crits is fairly simple. These are crits. I I I have a bit of a problem with crits sometimes because because crits are inherently, in my opinion, sack. There's a reason why Overlord runs 12 to 16 crits if you want to, and it can work. That's the reason why Valkyrian can run 16 crits and not get punished. There's a reason on why Hamiel 16 crit is a thing. That's why like a lot of 12 16 crit cards like in Grand Blue Premium, you most likely run 12 crits in uh, if I'm not wrong. Um, in some decks you can run a lot more crits than people think. It's because crits can win you game on the spot. If they know guard and you pull a crit with this deck, that's game. 3 damage. Done. If you pull 2 crits, 4 damage done. They're even more dead. If you have nothing on the back row, or if you can't get a crit, pulling a crit is so good because what you do with this deck is usually your second attack will have the plus crit no matter what you do. Second or third attack depending on how you see it. But yeah, the crit is good because crit is a crit. And good with the draws. I run a play set of draws, like 4 draws. You need to draw power. That's it. That's why I run the draws. If this deck doesn't have a draw problem, 8 crits. No problem with the 8 crits. But yeah, this deck has a problem and you need to draw. This is the reason why you run 8 draws. You can run 7 draws and 5 crits. But I'm not gonna do, but yeah, you usually don't do that because it's just a play set of things. It's like way more comfortable to see, like play set of a crit, a play set of a draw, play set of a PG, a play set of a heal, instead of like a random crit, like 5 crits and 3 draws. I understand one way we do that. It's probably way more practical, but I need a draw in this deck. This deck struggles with draws, struggles with searching pieces. If you help, this deck sometimes doesn't even work as it intended. And a bit of tip, with this deck you definitely want to go first. Going second is a lot of the time crippling. Yes, you can get the immediate plus crit. The problem with that is you have way less cards in hand than you would think. If you, especially if you don't have a heal guardian in hand, if you're going second, because you're gonna need everything to guard, and in this meta it's just hard to keep up with the other things, especially War in Japan, Kurugate in Japan, Prism in Japan, like especially with the better decks like Vanquisher and Valkyrian. This deck has a bit of a problem, but this specific one, in my opinion, my playstyle too, it's stable. That's why I like them, and yeah, that's why I just like Magoroku Fugen. It's a chance to not run Jamyocongo and you still can compete with things. Yeah, I know it sounds dumb, but yeah, that's all I have for this video. Like, that's it. If you do your, your normal YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, blah blah blah. And my name is Ethru again. You welcome. Like, thanks for watching the video. I thank you. Goodbye.